Hello everyone, this is your friend Uzumkai Universe 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto was reborn as the last Senju heir, and Tsunade left him behind? Part 3. Hardly any intonation there in his voice for me to grasp what he was feeling. Angry, alarmed, disbelief, scorn. Honestly, I couldn't guess. Thank you Uchiha-san. I do try, I replied with a gentle smile, hoping he is not here to stir up some trouble. And, what? We are Senju and Uchiha heirs. Do you know how many times the man had aimed a thinly veiled jibe at me during the few clan meetings I had attended? However, I do note that your academy scores were well, average. And it seems to be not the case here, he said mildly. I remained silent. If he thinks I am gonna give my reasons to him willy-nilly, he has another thing coming. All he was doing was making a statement. Even social etiquette didn't demand me to answer anything in the situation. We stood there for a few more minutes eyeing each other. I could feel my shoulder blades tense minutely as I wondered what he wanted from me. What do you want, Uchiha-san? I asked, at last, breaking the stalemate. The man may have too much time on his plate. However, I am afraid that I am already behind schedule to be at home. Bawako is not going to be happy. It's not that I need anything from you, Senju. There was light sneer in his phrasing of the last word. Even for that to happen, I must irritate him more than I thought. Or at least my last name. I am here in regards to an official complaint launched by the Uchiha clan to the military police, he stated, causing me to raise my eyebrows. Well, this is getting interesting. The Uchiha clan has expressed its unease to us that someone is training very close to their ancestral shrine. They are worried that a training accident may damage the shrine. Do you have official permits to train here? No, I didn't. And yes, he knew it. I am afraid I don't have any such permission. Forgive me, for I have thought this land to belong to Konoha and not to any clans. I sincerely apologize if I had hurt your clan's sentiments. I said sincerely. I am afraid I have to ask you to obtain Hokage's permission to train here, or you might have to stop, Fugaku said with a small gleam in his eyes. I understand, I said, nodding my head. Can I at least meditate here? I rather like the place. It's peaceful and isolated from the bustle of the village. Fugaku eyed me critically for a few moments. I held my eye contact with him. I wasn't afraid of him. Not now, and especially not here. The man may be a stuck-up, but he knew very well that the blame would fall on the entire Uchiha clan if any harm came to me here and now. And whatever his faults may be, the man loved his clan. As long as no technique is being practiced. Even taijutsu, he said before turning around and disappearing in a shower of leaves. Ah, the backhanded insult. He could have merely shunshined without turning around. By turning around and showing his back to me, Fugaku has stated clearly how he viewed me. I smiled at that and shook my head. Now what? I looked around the place and found that I rather liked spending time here. As I said to Fugaku, it was peaceful, calm and isolated from the village. This was my little hidey hole. A place where I can be myself without any of the social expectations placed on me. And now, the Uchihas want to drive me away from here. I sighed. This is going to cut into my training more than I could imagine, and I had just a few weeks to graduate from the academy. Asterisk 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 asterisk. What are you doing, Senju Baka? Harumi said in a lazy drawl that I had begun to oceate as her bored voice. Reading, I replied nonchalantly without bothering to take my eyes off the scroll in front of me. Ooh, nature characteristics. I didn't know you started chakra nature training so soon, Harumi said, eyeing the scroll from behind my back. SSSHH. Keep it down, I shushed her. She pouted before gifting me a swat on the head for my trouble. Oi, I objected only because it was expected of me. By now, I know Harumi well enough to say that she was simply bored and picking on me. And I have also gotten used to being physical in her expression by now. Seriously, how could I forget her clawing and scratching? Why aren't you taking a nap? I grumbled, packing up the scroll into my bag. I just woke up, she replied chirpily. Figures. In Nuki and Soyoto? I asked. Still sleeping, she replied, waving her hands as if it didn't matter. Perfect. Now I was the only one stuck with her. How's your training coming along? I asked as she plopped into the seat next to me. TCH, troublesome, she wrinkled her nose. I let out a bark of laughter. Everything is troublesome for you, I said good-naturedly. I don't know what it is with people and early morning, she grumbled under breath. They say it's the best time to train yourself, I replied, earning a glare from her. No, it is the best time to squeeze in a little more sleep, she replied seriously, causing me to chuckle. Anyway, do you know what you are going to do once you graduate? She asked me. Any specialization? I am a Senju, I replied shortly, as if it explained everything. TCH, troublesome. So, you would be going to the front lines, in the war. She didn't say it and she didn't need to either. Senjus were frontline fighters, and as a last Senju I was expected to fight on the frontline in the war. Very few Senju ever branched out to specialize in other fields. My cousin was an exception, she was both a frontline fighter and a field medic. If I wasn't still in the academy, they would have already shipped me off to Kusa by now. Luckily, I had another year to actually be sent to the front lines. And that is when the fighting will be the hardest. I grimaced at that thought. So, what about you? Have you given any thoughts on what you are going to do next? I asked, trying to revive the conversation. Shikaku-sama came by this morning. He offered me an apprenticeship in Intelligence Division. Code Division to be precise, she said, fiddling with her shirt. And, I asked, genuinely interested in her answer, what did you say? I haven't decided yet. I like codes, don't get me wrong. But, it's just that we are the only two. She hesitated and I understood what she was trying to tell. In our group of 4, Nuki had already accepted an apprenticeship in research. Soyoto had expressed that he wanted to become an academy teacher or an administrator, as other things would be too troublesome for him to handle. That left the two of us for team placements. And she wanted to know if it was fine with me if she left me alone for team placements. Don't worry, we all need to do what we are good at. Seriously, codes, huh? I can't imagine me staring at wriggly letters and numbers for all day, I shuddered at the thought. Oh, shut up. What do you know? The permutations and combinations and all the other stuff one needs to know to crack or create a code. It's just so interesting. I watched her express herself, and when that blissful emotion came upon her face, I shuddered outright. It was creepy, all right, and my mind was jumping places with that expression. Ew. I pushed her away. Take your gross fantasies somewhere. Oi baka. She pouted, and for a moment I was scared that she was going to launch herself at me. Thankfully, she composed herself and gave me a snort in return that almost sounded like troublesome. Seriously, you should take that apprenticeship. I mean it. If you like codes that much, you don't need to worry about me. I will be fine, I said to her. Who is worrying about you? She challenged. Ah, no one, my mistake, I surrendered, raising my hands. HMMMPH, she snorted and got up from the seat. Just when she was leaving, be careful out there, baka. I won't be there to save your scrawny if you mess up, Harami said, and marched off without bothering to wait for my reply. I gritted my teeth at her actions and sent a scowl at her back. Who does she think she is? I could take care of me, all right. If anyone needed protection, it was her. Her taijutsu was terrible, and don't even get me started with her other skills. She should be grateful that Shikaku offered her an apprenticeship. If not, this war would eat someone like her alive. Standardized and admissions tests. And she had the gall to suggest that I needed her to get me out of trouble. Please. Still, I couldn't exactly reject the pleasant feeling that rose up in my heart hearing her concern for me. At least, I had one friend who would mourn for me if I died and not the last Senju. Shinobi can be real hypocrites when they want to. I have seen countless instances of this behavior in my short life here in Narutoverse. Whether it be Hiruzen, Bawako, Danzo or any of the others that I usually interacted with, they are always fine with things as long as it is to their liking. If it inconveniences them, they would gladly forget that they would do the same thing. But, it never bothered me until that particular moment. Maybe it was because I was also a hypocrite like them. Maybe it was something else. I honestly didn't know. Hell, I wouldn't have even noticed it as a big flaw if I hadn't run into that particular canon character on that particular day. It was an important day for me in this second life. More important than the day I was born into this world or any other day. It was the anniversary, third to be precise, of the day that I realized I had been taking this second life for granted. It was the third anniversary of Tsukumo Hataki's death. Until the incident with Tsukumo happened, my goal of becoming an S-ranked ninja was never formed. Sure, like everyone I dreamed of being a powerful shinobi. But until Tsukumo died it didn't become concrete in my mind. I owed it to the man. He was the one who truly opened my eyes in this second life. Even though we haven't interacted at all, the man had left a lasting mark on my heart. A man who put the lives of fellow comrades over something as measly as reputation. In this village, he was a man with a clear conscience and had proper sight on what's more important. In my opinion, this world needs more men like him. I occasionally drop by Tsukumo's grave only to find it neglected and downtrodden. But not always. Sometimes there would be a flower on his grave indicating gratitude for his deeds. Sometimes it would be clean. And his anniversary was one of the times I had found the grave to be clean like any other grave could be. As usual, I strolled up to the grave and knelt before the headstone. The headstone didn't portray many words, but the words that have been engraved on them were enough for me. Hataki Tsukumo, the White Fang of Konoha. I viewed it for a few moments and bowed my head in respect. I stayed there like that for a few minutes hoping the man would understand in the afterlife how he had affected me and wondering whether he would approve of my actions. I was by no means a hero like him. I was selfish and usually shied away from making any major decisions. I liked my life trouble-free, yet I yearned to become strong. I didn't know whether my desire for power was as altruistic as I imagined it to be or it is just that, a craving for power. I didn't know whether someone like Tsukumo would approve of a man like me. But, I hoped there was something in me that he would approve. I opened my eyes and placed the flower I had bought with me beside the 3 flowers that were already placed on the grave. I sat there silently for a few minutes wondering who these 3 flowers belonged to. Probably from the families of 3 men whose life he saved, my mind supplied. While it has been already 3 years since his death, shinobi still preferred to dissociate themselves from the man. His sacrifice and ideas were scorned. Even when people respected him it was for his power and power alone. So, I didn't think any of the shinobi will be caught paying respects to the man. I, on the other hand, respected him for his clear sight and the extent he was willing to go to protect his son. It was something similar to what Tsunade had done for me. While he performed seppuku, Tsunade distanced herself. Nevertheless, both of their intentions were the same. To protect their loved ones. And I respected that immensely. Stay away from her, you bastard. A voice from the past spat at me in my mind. My hands involuntarily tightened. I didn't have many memories of my past life. As this life went on, only a few of those were still present. The knowledge of this world and some important and impactful things I had faced in my past life. And those words were one of the most vivid memories of my past life left in my mind. Most of it was repressed at the back of my mind. But, not these words. And I had been a selfish hole in my past life. I was not a good human being then. Even now, I didn't know if I could be as selfless as Tsukumo or Tsunade and make such sacrifices. I didn't know whether I had it in me to put someone's life and happiness over mine. I just hoped that by visiting his grave some of his greatness would rub off on me. And his grave reminded me of Tsunade's sacrifice. It is a funny thing, these memories. Even though they hurt you, you still yearn to have them. Regardless of the pain they inflict on you, you still went towards them. It was like a poison that slowly devours you away. Still, it was my poison and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Just hearing the voice alone ripped me apart and soothed me at the same time. As I stood there contemplating on why I visit his grave, I felt 2 chakra signatures approaching the memorial site. Probably, some people who were coming to pay their respects to a fallen shinobi or their friends. I didn't mind it much and continued with my contemplation. Sure, this was going to shine some bad light on me. But who I pay my respects to is none of their business. And I wasn't worried much about social backlash. Being a Senju gave you a kind of immunity from social ridicule. Small mercies. Still, I have been careful in my visit to Tsukumo's grave. Before approaching, I usually double-checked for any of Danzo's stalkers following me. It wouldn't do to give him an impression that I was taken with Tsukumo's ideals. The man was one of the most vocal decriers of Tsukumo's action. The signatures that were approaching were not muted like Danzo's stalkers. So, it didn't bother me much. And it looks like they have stopped at the edge of the memorial site to pay their respects to whichever grave they came to visit. I stood there for a long time wondering about myself and my actions. It bothered me a little that I wasn't doing anything to change the shitty future that was going to happen. But I was realistic. Even if I wanted to change something I couldn't, simply because I wasn't strong enough to affect the flow of things. Whether it be the death of Minato and Kushina Nair, the precursor to that, the tragedy of Team 7, or the Uchiha Maker, I didn't possess enough strength to affect things. Yet, some might say that gently nudging people by forming bonds with them and directing them into the correct path is all I needed to do. But I wasn't keen on that either. Seriously, from how they portray it, you would think people would listen to their every word. Damn it, it doesn't happen like that in reality. Hiruzen and Bawako were not even willing to break tradition by teaching me some jutsus, and I had lived with them for 7 long years. And what guarantee is there that someone would actually do something just because I suggested? All it would leave is me forming unwanted bonds with people who are either going to die or go bonkers. And I wasn't keen on experiencing that emotional pain. I had gone through enough death for one lifetime, and this lifetime wasn't going to be death-free either. It would be stupid to do so. Likewise, confiding my knowledge of the future to someone was also entirely out of the question. What with Danzo and Orochimaru still revolving around the village and the Third Shinobi War ongoing, anyone who professes that they have the knowledge of future would be sent to TI for every advantage in war. Hiruzen would gladly throw me to the wolves if it meant getting a distinctive advantage in war. What do you expect? The man was a military dictator in all senses, and you don't become a Hokage without making some hard decisions. Do you think Hiruzen wouldn't kill a genin if the need arose? Then, think again. If it means sacrificing me to win the war, Hiruzen would do it, however reluctantly. Oh, there would be praises for me, after they have ravaged through my mind and made me a walking vegetable, as the hero who helped the war end. But what use were those praises to me if I am dead or worse? I am not a hero to selflessly sacrifice myself. I think we have already established that. So, it was back to the starting point. I need to get stronger so that I could realistically affect the flow of things. That was the only way I could accomplish it. No willy-nilly ways that involved sappy conversations and life-altering pieces of advice. That's a fool's quest. And I like my head on my shoulders as it is. Thank you very much. I let out a self-deprecating laugh and shook my head to clear my thoughts. Enough doubting my route for the time being. There is a war happening outside and I needed to get strong quickly, or at least get strong enough to survive the war so that I could affect things in the future. I exhaled a huge sigh, making up my mind and prepared to leave. As I turned around, I saw a stunned Chibi Kakashi and Minato standing in the distance and watching me. While Minato's face had surprise written all over it, Kakashi's face was more interesting to watch. His face had numerous expressions and the mask he was wearing was failing to mask the strong influx of emotions he was feeling at the moment. I could see a blend of anger, disgust, surprise and even disappointment in his face. Disappointment, interesting. I bowed to them and started walking towards them where I knew the proper exit to the memorial was located. Minato recovered from his surprise and stood idly watching Kakashi. Kakashi was like a high-strung bow and it looked like one wrong move would set him off. As I ped them by, Kakashi spoke. Why? His tone was strained as he was trying to remain calm despite the mix of emotions he felt. I stopped a few feet after pinging them. My back was still turned to them. I didn't know what prompted me to stop, but there was a desperateness to Kakashi's tone that made me pause. Why? What, Kakashi-san? I asked, turning to face them. His face was a mixture of disgust and anger. The disappointment and surprise were gone by now. He scoffed as if he didn't expect me to be this dumb. Why do you visit that man's grave? He is a traitor, Kakashi demanded. Who? Tsukumo-san. Why would you say that? I asked, feigning confusion. I saw Minato stiffen from the corner of my eyes. Kakashi was oblivious to it, however. PFF'd. He snorted. That man betrayed the code of shinobi. He betrayed the trust Hokage-sama had in him. He betrayed the village and his comrades. Is that so? I raised my eyebrows, now genuinely irritated with the way Kakashi was acting. Sure, he was only a little kid who had felt the ire of the entire village as his father was orchestrated for his actions. But, the way he was talking to me made it look like he hated his father. You are some Senju, he scoffed. Everyone knows that man is a traitor. Fine. I see where this is going. Kakashi needed me to justify his hatred for his father. From the looks of it, Minato has begun to chip his facade a little by little and was bringing him back to the land of the living. Or was it Obito? Didn't he graduate last term with Asuma and others? If I was not mistaken, Obito was beginning to annoy Kakashi more than he led on to others. If Obito was indeed bothering Kakashi and if he has heard about Tsukumo, then he would no doubt support the man at this stage. And it looks like that was the case here. And me justifying his anger would be all Kakashi needs to withhold Obito's attempts to hero worship Tsukumo. I mulled about what I should do in this situation for a few moments. It would be very simple to justify his claims and walk away from here without any HLE. I could even claim to be enamored by the fame of the White Fang of Konoha and both Minato and Kakashi would believe it. After all, I was only 7. 7-year boys can be a bit immature at times. But, did I wanted to do that? This was not Danzo or some other member of the village in front of me. This was Kakashi, the boy to whose welfare Tsukumo sacrificed his life. And seeing Kakashi hate the man who sacrificed his life for him, didn't sit well with me. Something inside me wanted to set Kakashi straight, a leftover regret from an earlier life. Tell me, Kakashi-san, why did you become a shinobi? I asked, changing the topic. My change of topic surprised Kakashi. But, he didn't want to be considered stupid in front of a kid and he puffed up his entire being before he replied. A shinobi's job is to protect the village and lay his life on the line for the village. That's why I became a shinobi. Kakashi bland textbook answer did no justice to the way his shoulders were puffed up like a self-important person. I bet he was thinking that he was teaching a yet-to-be genin how to act like a proper shinobi. What is a village? I asked without missing a beat, having expected Kakashi's answer. What? Kakashi looked at me like I was an idiot. On the other hand, Minato was looking at me curiously. I think he was beginning to get interested in this conversation now. Good. I would need his help. I mean, what is a village? What makes it up? Is it the name? Is it the buildings? Is it the people? Or is it something else? I asked Kakashi in a calm manner. Kakashi looked flabbergasted by my question. It was clear from his expression that he didn't expect me to ask something like that. As he mulled over my words, Minato came to his rescue as expected. It is the people living in the village that makes it a village. Buildings can be rebuilt, the name can be reared, and all the other things that are in the village can be recreated, except for the people. That is why they are what a village is made up of, Minato answered me with a serious expression on his face. It was as if the blonde was parting on some wisdom to a young 7-year-old. I didn't mind because to his eyes I was just that. I nodded my head to indicate that I heard him and looked at Kakashi in expectation. What Minato-sensei said, Kakashi replied grouchily. Then, he didn't betray it. From what I heard, he saved the lives of his comrades. That means he saved what is truly important for the village. I said, nodding to myself as if I had uncovered a great secret. Kakashi's eyes twitched in response. Minato had a thoughtful expression on his face. He betrayed his mission. A shinobi must obey the rules and complete the mission he is ignorant even at the cost of his life. He betrayed the trust Hokage-sama had in him. And he sullied the name of Konoha, Kakashi stated vehemently. It looked as if Kakashi was adamant to make me see that his father was a traitor. It would have worked if not for me being mentally an adult who could argue better than him. Not to mention the training I received from Danzo on how to contest with people with mere words. Add it to my relatively younger age and how no one expects a 7-year-old kid to argue logically, Kakashi had no chance here. As Minato-san said, the name of a village can be reared. Reputation can be regained, but the lives of people can't be replaced, I said calmly in reply. Kakashi grunted at me in reply. He was not willing to budge. I didn't mind it though. It wasn't my job to make him have a change of heart. It was Obito's. As I said, someone pointing out the flaws in one's logic is not going to change people. Because humans are ruled by emotions, and despite how intelligent one might be, they will not accept someone else's logic over theirs easily. Unless they already consider the person giving the advice to be stronger, wiser, and more experienced. As a 7-year-old, I had none of those above qualities. Yet, what would you have done if you were in Tsukumo-san's place? Minato asked me out of the blue. It sure did take me by surprise. I saw Kakashi's eyes narrow at the question. Was this a test of some sort? Was Minato testing me to see how I would respond? I eyed Minato for a minute trying to guess his motive. Being the last Senju, my actions and decisions are always under scrutiny. If the curious expression he had on his face was anything to go by, I think it was a spur-of-the-moment question. Determining that it was not a test on my eligibility to be a shinobi, I gave it my full attention. What would I do if I was in Tsukumo's position? Nitpicking his decision from the safety of the village seemed kind of like insulting the man. Regardless, I had been posed with a question. A question that may even become a reality at some point in time. What would I do if I was Tsukumo? When I have no clue about the number of enemies we will be facing and armed with only the knowledge that this mission was vital. If I proceeded with the mission, my teammates will be in danger. Not me though. Tsukumo was as famous as the 3 Sannin. They were S-rank shinobi for a reason. There is very little they had to fear in this world. The chance of encountering such a threat was significantly low. So, I would be safe. That left only my teammates in danger. I could easily go through with the mission and walk out alive. Most probably alone. But, was it worth it to sacrifice lives like that? Is it needed? What would I do? I contemplated on it for a few more minutes before ultimately reaching a decision. Steeling my heart for whatever reactions I would get from my answer, I replied. I would Kakashi and Minato's eyes took on an eager gleam to hear my answer. Continue with the mission. Kakashi's eyes had a glint of triumph in them. His satisfaction was written all over his face. Minato's eyes had a disappointing look in them, but he masked it well by nodding along. I would continue because I elaborated my reasons and both of them leaned eagerly to hear my piece. I am more like my grandfather. We both are realistic people. I will continue with the mission despite the danger, because danger is a part of a shinobi's life. I can't expect each and every mission to go smoothly. Sometimes sacrifices should be made. Their interests peaked the moment I mentioned my grandfather. After all, Tobirama Senju was known as the shinobi who actually built the infrastructure of a hidden village. Hashirama and Madara may have founded the village, it was Tobirama who made it functional. Minato nodded along with my reasoning and it was clear from his eyes that he approved of my decision but was not happy with it. Kakashi, on the other hand, had a smug expression on his face. But I wasn't done though. If the little shit thought I had been converted into his way of thinking, he had another thing coming. That's why I respect Tsukumo-san a lot. Continuing with the mission was the ideal decision to make. But was it the right thing? Tsukumo-san wouldn't be in any danger, for he is a lot stronger than his teammates. His teammates, on the other hand, would have surely perished during the mission. Tsukumo-san made a decision to save their lives, and I am sure it was not an easy decision for him. I respect him because he had what I didn't have. The courage to take difficult decisions. The scowl on Kakashi's face spoke everything he wanted to convey. Minato was genuinely interested in my reply and his eyes softened in understanding. Why do you think he made that decision? Minato asked curiously. Tsukumo-san. I think Tsukumo-san is like my granduncle. They both cherished lives. My granduncle wanted to find a solution to the warring clans era to bring about peace because he didn't want people to die. That is why my grandfather looked up to him. And that is why I look up to Tsukumo-san, I finished. Minato's expression can only be summed up as if he had had a huge revelation. That lightbulb moment, if I am to be precise. Kakashi, on the other hand, was scowling like there was no tomorrow. He couldn't forgive his father still. And he couldn't accept the fact that Tsukumo was far better than the whole village. I didn't expect him to understand yet. But I think Minato got my explanation and the unspoken message I had conveyed through it. I didn't want to linger with them any longer. Even, I felt a little emotional after having such a conversation. I excused myself from the duo. Minato bid me goodbye cheerfully and Kakashi was still not taking off that scowl, and made my way to the village proper. The conversation I had with Minato and Kakashi had given me a few things about myself to ponder. It was clear that Kakashi and most of the shinobis in the village were being hypocritical about the whole business regarding Tsukumo. While they all yearned to protect the village, they all conveniently forgot what the village was actually made of. And now, the only man who truly understood the value of lives was being orchestrated. I wasn't an exception either. While I didn't orchestrate Tsukumo, I wasn't any better either. While they all reviled Tsukumo's actions, I merely accepted it as his nature and moved on. Sure, his actions did make an impact on me. And half the respect I had for him came from my respect for Tsunade's sacrifice. But when I was put into his position, I wasn't any better than Kakashi. Even though my reasons were different as to that of Kakashi's simple drivel of it as a shinobi's duty, in the end, my actions mirrored his. What good are reasons if I am going to do the same thing as him? After the talk with Minato, I had some serious self-reflection to do. Just 1 week before the graduation exam, something interesting occurred to break the monotony of the dull academy life. Don't get me wrong, to most of my CL mates almost every day was interesting. With the graduation coming up, there was an excitable air in the academy where brainwashed kids were jumping high with giddiness at the thought of becoming a child soldier. Me, on the other hand, wasn't so happy as the others. Sure, I was happy that the academy ordeal was finally getting over, but more than that happiness, it was fear that engulfed my heart. Unlike my CL mates, I knew what was out there. I knew why I was graduating early. I knew that most of my fellow CL mates will probably end up dead, including me. And I was afraid. Even when I had no attachments to the kids sitting beside me, apart from the trio of Naras, I couldn't be unaffected knowing that at least half of these kids will die before this war gets over. And I don't care who you are, but if you are not affected by the impending death of more than 20 children, even when they are trained to kill, then there is something wrong with you. So naturally, I was brooding as the graduation day neared. But I won't act like that the fear was the only reason for my brooding. There was another thing that was bugging me. My nature transformation. I had expected some kind of an epiphany to happen at least by now. Even if I couldn't accomplish it, I merely expected to at least find the solution to turn normal chakra into water-natured chakra. And so far, none of my ideas have come to fruition. And it frustrated me. But I digress. As I said, 1 week before we were supposed to take our graduation test, we all received a surprise visitor. More like multiple surprise visitors. Ayako-sensei walked into our CL with a worried expression and glared at his usual troublemakers long and hard until they settled down. It was unusual itself to warrant my attention. Ayako-sensei usually let kids settle down on their own. It is the first time he had intimidated them into sitting down. If that isn't unusual, I don't know what is. And naturally, it garnered my attention. I sat straight in my seat and I saw a few of my CL mates lean forward eagerly too. You all will be taking your graduation exams in a week. In an attempt to get you familiarized with the various organizations that you will be working for in the future, we have arranged a few guest speakers to come and elaborate their roles and responsibilities. Mind you, I want every one of you on your best behavior. If anyone crosses the line, they will not be allowed to take the graduation exams. A silence like no other greeted his statement, and immediately the kids in the CL were looking at each other excitedly. And just like that, the dam broke and everyone started babbling about what they knew of various departments. I had to admit, it was a good thing to know the roles and responsibilities of the various organizations in Konoha. Even though I knew most of the organizations in Konoha and their roles, there may be a few that I hadn't come across. And Ayako-sensei left us to our babbling and walked out of the CL room. The moment he left the CL room, chaos erupted. And it was hilarious to watch several kids shouting to drown out each other in an attempt to get their voice across. But it was also an absolute mayhem compared to the relative silence that existed a few minutes ago. I rode that mayhem by putting my hands across my ears to drown out the multitude of voices speaking beside me at once. As I looked around, I was stunned to see that Soyoto and Nuki were still sleeping despite the chaos around them. I immediately searched and found a pissed Harumi glaring at the girl beside her. And the girl was oblivious to the death stare she was receiving as she talked excitedly to Harumi. I couldn't help but chuckle at the scene. And as if my chuckle reached her ears through the mayhem, Harumi whipped to my direction and balefully stared at me. It cracked me up further. And I was sure if she was an Uchiha, she would have set me on fire with her eyes alone. Before she could throw something at me, Ayako-sensei returned and glared at everyone. The CL fell silent at his glare. Behave, he stressed and looked at everyone. Before things could get any further, a middle-aged woman with a kind face walked inside the CL room. Every head in the CL room swiveled to her direction. Students, this is Shumiho Suru. She is here on behalf of the medical corps. Good morning, children, I am Shumiho Suru. I am here to explain the duties of a medic nin. A medic nin is not a very glamorous occupation for a lot of young shinobi. Only very few voluntarily join us. It is because we aren't on the front lines fighting the war. Instead, we are far away from any fighting. Martial arts films. You could feel the interest deflate among the kids in the CL room. Some even went as far as to groan. But it didn't put off Suru. Rather, she smiled genially and went on. However, being a medic nin is not as bad as it sounds. Being a medic nin entails far more responsibility than fighting the war. Few kids let out a snort of disbelief. In war, people get hurt. If there is no one to cure them and get them back up, no one will be fighting on the front line. Deaths increase and casualties rise. Some of you may feel that being medic nin is beneath you. However, let me tell you something. You can't just become a medic nin if you wish. You need to have above 90% chakra control to even be considered to be accepted by us. Gasps echoed all across the CL room due to that statement. By now, everyone in the CL room knew what it meant to have a high degree of chakra control. Ayako-sensei had explained a few months ago that the reason most of the students were struggling with their academy jutsus were because they had low chakra control. He had went on to explain how shinobi with high chakra control had more chances of becoming a junin than the others. Having caught everyone's attention, Suru didn't pause. She went on to explain why that high chakra control was needed to be a medic nin and how medic nin had saved several shinobi's lives due to their tireless efforts and such. In the end, she wrapped her explanation with a small mention about the poster girl for medic nins, Tsunade Senju. Tsunade-sama is one of the greatest medic nins of all times. She is the one who revolutionized our medical system. It is thanks to her we have a functional medical system that is best among the elemental nations. In fact, several of the nations have based their medical systems based on ours. In fact, it is widely acknowledged that it is due to her revolution in the medical system that we won the Second Shinobi War. I hope that at least one of you might come close to replicate her success. She meaningfully stared at me. I merely kept my face blank and stared back at her. There were hushed whisperings all around the CL room. It was not hard to miss who she was inferring at that moment. She hardly concealed it with her pointed stare. And just when I thought things can't get any awkward, she spoke again. Haterama-kun, I heard from the Hokage that you have excellent chakra control. If you decide to put in more work, I am sure you can walk in your cousin's footsteps. Dead silence filled the room. I merely stared at her. It was true, my chakra control was excellent. I had even started to waterwalk this early in my career, and from experience I can tell that it takes a lot of concentration and excellent chakra control. Not to mention, fighting on water takes even further chakra control. And if you take my large chakra reserves, it is no wonder they thought that I could follow Tsunade's footsteps if I applied myself. Shumiho Suru didn't talk any further. She merely smiled at me serenely and walked away from the CL room filled with whispers. Ayako-sensei was looking at me strangely. I didn't fault the man either. I had never shown much potential in the CL room. It should come as a huge surprise to him that my chakra control has caught the eye of medic nins. However, he soon recovered and went out to fetch the next speaker. The moment he stepped out, hushed whispers and mutterings broke out among my CL mates. However, not everyone was talking in a whisper. Fujita Uchiha didn't even bother to lower his voice as he spoke to his clansmen. Good riddance, that coward should definitely follow his cowardly cousin's footsteps. It would be fitting. At least, it would keep him alive. What a shame. How the mighty Senju clan has fallen. Loud guffaws followed his statement from the rest of his clansmen. I gritted my teeth in anger. It would be so easy to snap and teach the little punk a lesson. However, I had come this far hiding my abilities. Just one more week. I can endure this. From the corner of my eyes, I saw others looking at me hoping I would retaliate somehow. But they all waited in vain. I was not going to lose my cool over a stupid kid's remark. I had come this far. Just one more week wouldn't make much of a difference. Then, we would all go different ways. Thankfully, Ayako-sensei walked in at that moment with a grim-looking man behind him. Children, this is Najiko Ren. He is here to talk about the mission IGN meant department. Najiko Ren introduced himself and began explaining how missions were ignited and graded. He went into a little detail about the process involving it. While I already knew most of the stuff, living with a Hokage had its perks, the others ate it up. Several of the kids were fascinated with his work and soon he too left. The next was a Yamanaka representing Intel Division. A gruff-looking Inazaka followed him and explained the duties of Tracker, Hunter Nin. Several shinobis appeared after them detailing the various activities of different divisions in Konoha. Lunch came and went. For the first time kids were eager to get back to CL. It was almost evening when the last person I wanted to meet walked in. Fugaku Uchiha walked into the CL room and I groaned. The Uchihas who were in the CL room sat up straighter and looked around proudly. Their posture reminded me of a preening peacock. I grumbled an unintelligible curse and promptly flopped onto the desk. Uchiha military police was nothing new to me. In fact, that particular group of people and that name combined brought me some bad taste in the mouth. This division was where their downfall started, and my grandfather was the one who initiated it. Was I somehow responsible for the fate written for them down the line? I didn't know and it didn't sit well with me at all. Senju Haterama, will you stir straight? That is not the proper posture to keep in a CL room. Yup, that is how Fugaku Uchiha started his speech. No greetings or endorsements about his department. Instead, he started with a dig at my slumped form. I merely raised an eyebrow at him. As I have said, Fugaku Uchiha hated me. Every time we both were in each other's presence, he took a dig at me. It was nothing new. But, I never expected him to pursue that to this extent. I sat up straight and a hush filled the CL room. We stared at each other for a few moments before he averted his eyes to look over the CL. I glanced around and found the Naris were as usual slumped. I let out a huge sigh and turned to eye him. As expected, he had expected such a reaction from me and was standing there impavely as if daring me to make a comment. I merely averted my eyes and looked elsewhere. Young shinobi of Leaf, I am Uchiha Fugaku, Chief of Military Police. Military Police of Konoha was formed under the edict of Second Hokage Senju Tobarama to govern the domestic disputes that might arise between the population of Konoha. Unlike other departments, we deal with both civilians and shinobis. The Uchiha clan, one of the founding clans of Konoha, was given the privilege to deal with the domestic disputes that might arise in Konoha. His tone was clipped, straight to the point, hardly any intonation or emotion in it. But, I had to give it to him, the man had a commanding presence and self-assurance. He easily made a CL room full of drained kids to listen to him. And it takes some natural commanding presence to do so. It is surely not a small feat to grab the attention of every kid in the room this late into the day. He went on to explain the duties of military police and explained the responsibility entrusted to their clan by the second Hokage. There was no resentment in his voice. It was pride that resonated through his entire being. And, at that moment it dawned on me that at this juncture, the Uchihas were proud to be the military police. They thought that only they could do it. I mentally applauded my grandfather for creating such a believable white lie. He had created something that sated both the Uchiha's hunger for power and their pride in being the best. That was a win-win situation for both parties. Maybe, my grandfather wasn't as prejudiced as the series made me believe. In his own way, he was giving the Uchihas what they had always wanted. It was at that moment it dawned on me that my grandfather may have been prejudiced against the Uchihas, but he didn't intend to alienate them. It was the fallout from his death and the impact of his prejudice in the subsequent generation that alienated them. I couldn't even fault Danzo. In a way, my grandfather was responsible for poisoning Danzo's mind against Uchiha. However, Tobarama Senju had thought it was the best course of action at that time. And until now, It looked to be so. So, where had it gone wrong? And, my mind raced. I hardly paid any attention to what Fugaku was saying. It was not important compared to the epiphany I had had. But a few things didn't add up in my mind. Why the Uchihas? Were they the only clan vying for power? No. At that time, Hashirama Senju had just died. And it would have created a power vacuum. I wasn't naive to believe that no other clan wanted the Hokage title. Sure, the Uchihas were vying. But, were they the only ones? The Naras were too lazy to actually want the position. Also, the Yamanaka and Nara clan had followed Akamichi clan. If anything, they would have pushed for Akamichi Hokage. Inazakas wouldn't have minded as long as they and their ninkin were free from the HLE. They neither had the patience or the composure to win a political struggle. They were brash people, and politics wasn't something that suited them. They wouldn't have wanted it. But, what about Sarutobi, Shimura, Akamichi, and Hyugas? Surely, they weren't so magnanimous enough to allow someone to claim the title. Maybe Akamichi's. But, the others were not that magnanimous. In that case, then giving the Uchihas the military police was a political move. And if my grandfather was as much a realist as the history stated, then he must have made some concessions to other clans too. Hiruzen and Danzo were his students. Did he take them up as his students to soothe the tensions? What did he give the Hyugas then? Maybe the right to govern themselves, something like a caged bird seal. My mind was whirling. My grandfather had created a political masterstroke. Appease the Uchihas with a sole authority over the village's domestic disputes. Take in 2 promising young shinobi from other major clans as students and give them a sign that one of them can succeed him. And if any other clan grumbled, the Uchihas were there to come down on them hard. No sweat of his skin. He had cleverly moved all the opposing powers to be at each other's neck to succeed him. Not hinder his way to the power. And you couldn't handle a powder keg for power that might blow up and tear the village down at any moment better than that. It was a brilliant masterstroke of political maneuvering. But, where it had all gone wrong was when he died. The fire he ignited to rise to power was not fully quenched when he died. And it had spread throughout the village like cancer, and now he was not there to direct it somewhere else. His untimely death had derailed all his plans to establish a peaceful country. Instead, his death has left Uchihas isolated and in bad terms with most of the clans due to their policing. A Shimura waiting in the shadows to grab the power from a Sarutobi. Hyugas enjoying unchecked autonomy over their clan that has started to form tensions within themselves. The only ones who were left safe were the ones who might have stayed out of the entire power struggle after Hashirama's death. And his own clan, reduced to merely 2 survivors. No one. I wasn't supposed to live at all. Oh, the irony of that. If that is what had happened, then Tsunade's point of view of the Hokage seat being cursed had an even more deep meaning. The only ways this vicious struggle could have broken was if there was a clear-cut successor for Tobarama in Senju clan, which wasn't there at that time, or if someone completely outside of this entire shebang became Hokage. And Minato had been that. Only, he had died with just a year under his belt. As a result, Uchihas were almost wiped out. There was no Sarutobis or Shimuras shown from the show either, apart from a few important ones. The Hyuga clan had almost blown itself from inside. Only the clans that were outside of the power struggle was left with a sizable number of members while the next generation came of age. One man's untimely death had created a cascade effect that had almost destroyed most of the powerful clans of the nation by the time the 3rd generation came out. And as I watched Fugaku Uchiha leave, I could almost hear my grandfather's lament at his untimely death. If only the Cloud bastards knew how close they came to destroy Konoha. Asterisk 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 asterisk. I sat on top of the Naka River, rooting my body to the river's surface with chakra as it flew below me. The chirping of birds in the far-off tree and the sound of the flowing river were my only companions. My chakra sense didn't pick up anyone near my vicinity, guaranteeing me my isolation. I had 2 days to go till the graduation exams begin, and if I am not mistaken, I wouldn't be able to get time to myself minimum for the next 6 months. I was sure once I graduated, the team bonding, constant D ranks, and team training will occupy my time far more than I would like, and I decided to enjoy my relatively peaceful situation as long as it lasted. The river flowing below me was soothing as it gave off a warm feeling with its constant motion. I pulled back my chakra sense. By now I could envelope quite a distance with my chakra sense due to constantly using it in the past few weeks. While I hadn't measured the exact distance, I knew for a fact it will hard to catch me off guard with my chakra sense on. I pulled it back, deciding to take a well-deserved break before the HLE began. Language resources. The peaceful atmosphere was beginning to relax me, and I felt the ever-present tension in my body slowly fade. All in all, I was pretty content with where I was in my life. My taijutsu was quite good, and I will dare say I can give a run to a high-level chunin for his money if I took my weights off. My fuinjutsu and bukinjutsu were payable enough. While they weren't my main worries, I had decent enough skill in them. I had come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to be an awesome weapons master like Tenten or as good as the Uchihas in using shuriken. My aptitude for weapons was payable at best. On the other hand, I had realized early in my training that fuinjutsu would need decades of concentration to master it. Hence, I had no worries regarding them. My genjutsu was non-existent, and since I was a senju, that avenue was closed even prior to this. While I can master basic genjutsus, I knew that they weren't going to be my fortes. Seriously, the Uchihas had it easy. Their affinity for fire made them ninjutsu experts, and the Sharingan hack they had helped them along with all 3 major avenues for shinobi. And even the ever-difficult genjutsu was made easy for them with their Sharingan. How overpowered and unfair that was. And I was sure that I am beginning to hate Sharingan at this point solely on principle. I am even amazed that the Senjus fought toe-to-toe with them despite the advantage the stupid Sharingan gave to them. That gave me a feeling of pride to be a Senju. While I preferred to leave out my last name when dealing with people, the Uchihas were a different matter. I was proud of being a Senju when it came to dealing with Uchiha bastards. The only thing that worried me was my ninjutsu skills. 3 academy jutsus, that's it. And it was giving me gray hair. But I wasn't fazed. Recently I have been training to perform multiple substitutions to compensate for my ninjutsu skills. If I can't fight, then I needed to have an evasion technique just in case if I ever get into trouble. And a war is nothing if not trouble. Letting out my worries drown in the soothing feeling of my pleasant atmosphere, I aimlessly drifted along with just enough concentration to keep me stationary on the flowing river. After all, it wouldn't do good to float along with the river and enter Uchiha territory. That would be interesting. Just for a moment, I felt a childish urge to see how the stuck-ups will react to it. But I nipped the thought at the bud, reminding myself that Danzo was waiting around for just an opportunity like that. Aimlessly, I let my mind wander from one thing to the other before it settled on the aquatic life forms below. I could feel them circling underwater, waiting for me to plummet down. Ha! Fat chance. Take that, you buggers. I have completely mastered water walking, and hell would freeze over before you get a taste of me again. Suddenly curious to see how many of them were waiting for my downfall, I enveloped a small area of water with my chakra sense. There were quite a few buggers down there. Looks like the crowd had enlarged since my last plummet. Too bad, I am not in the mood to get bitten by countless fishes. Kami did its thing. Unknowing to me, my chakra seeped into the water and mingled with it. I realized it belatedly and tried to pull back the connection, only to stop short in the process. My eyes widened as I felt my chakra move along with the water to quite a distance from where I was sitting. It was quite some distance. Suddenly grabbed by a silly notion, I acted on it. I let my chakra flow into the water and tried to envelop as much water as possible. It took a few minutes before I felt the telltale signs of my chakra running thin. I could barely dredge up enough chakra to stay still on the moving water. But, on the other hand, the feeling I was experiencing as my chakra mixed into the river was indescribable. It was as if my entire being had enlarged to envelop something huge. I was big, I was strong, and I was smooth and ever-changing. I could feel the aquatic life forms milling around in the area of water I had encompassed, and Kami were they numerous. I had always known that my chakra reserves were quite big for a 7-year-old, and from the looks of it, I could envelop quite a distance from my position extending both sides. Kami was it just relaxing. Giddy with this newfound relaxation method, I fully immersed myself into it. I wanted to feel more and have a taste of being something primal. I sat there felling the water I had encompassed move lethargically without any purpose. Always finding the easiest route to flow. Shifting about smaller obstacles, flowing around bigger ones, and even encompassing them without affecting them. It was as if a whole new world had been opened to my senses. I soaked in it and let my mind empty, feeling so relaxed. I felt the water move in its natural way, and some part of me resonated with it in harmony. I didn't bother to think about it. Probably being a water-natured shinobi was the only reason I could feel this. If not, who knows? I blinked. That might actually work. And then it hit me. How dumb I had been. Seriously, how could I miss this? I have been feeling it for such a long time that I had even got accustomed to it. Water flows. It is as simple as that. And what a moron I was to miss this all along. This might actually be the key to my problem. Move the chakra and let it flow naturally. Like a river moving naturally along its course. God damn it. Oops. And then I plummeted once more underwater, my concentration slipping with my joy in my newfound answer. And the buggers got me good. Damn those buggers. This is not over, you squiggly morons. I will get back at you for this. Ouch. Ouch. Stop biting me there. Stop it. Stop it. Damn you buggers. Ow. 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 Asterisk 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 asterisk. Hi, thank you for all your love and support. The story is going to enter the Third Shinobi War, and so far you have gotten to know Heitorama in a relatively peaceful environment. I know many of you have been chaffing at the lack of action so far. Heitorama gets into his first fight next chapter. Yes, you guessed right. It's the graduation chapter. I am actually done with it and currently editing it. We'll post it as soon as possible. Martial arts films. Also, let me know what you thought about the political theory I explained in this chapter. I have an inkling that it would fit well with the story and what we saw of the clans in the series. The feeling I was enjoying as I made my way into the academy good 7 minutes late on the day of my graduation exam was nothing short of jubilation. I had done it. I had done it. Look out, old man, I am gonna run circles around you sooner or later. After I had picked myself out of the river, getting away from the buggers was more troublesome than I thought. It looked like they didn't want their favorite snack to escape easily. Those bastards were chasing me till I walked out of the river and made it to the bank. I was thoroughly exhausted. My chakra was near depletion and I decided to call it a day. My happiness in figuring out the problem that had stumped me for long was only tempered by the humiliation I felt in being caught by those buggers. The bemused look Bawako gave me when I entered the house all wet and sporting red marks all over my face, just added to my irritation. What am I to say? That a bunch of fishes were eager to taste me. I could imagine how that would be received. I threw another bout of curses at those buggers and promptly slept off from exhaustion. After a good night's sleep, my chakra was mostly restored thanks to the fact that my body was still developing. Immediately I started working on my newfound breakthrough, and Kami was it wonderful to feel the mist flowing out of my mouth. I worked on it till I was exhausted and went back to sleep, not bothering to attend the academy. Today, I set off with a few bandages on my face, thanks to some of the overenthusiastic buggers. I swear I am gonna fry that entire school of fish and gorge on their cark, before making a detour to my favorite resting spot. I took my sweet time admiring the village before eventually starting to the academy. I knew I was late a few minutes, but honestly, I could care less about being late. I had done it. I had figured out how to convert normal chakra into water-natured chakra on my own, and Kami was it a wonderful feeling. As I entered the CL room, the entire CL was emboldened and ready for the test. Ayako-sensei raised an eyebrow at my unusual appearance and his eyes demanded the reason for my tardiness. I rubbed the back of my head and closed one eye before replying sheepishly, "Sorry sensei, I just got lost on the road of life." Ayako-sensei's eyes twitched and his lips grew thin, letting me know that he was not amused by my excuse. On the other hand, I could hear the entire CL room facepalm at my excuse. The only exception to it was the glares I received from the Hyugas and Uchihas in our CL. The tense atmosphere broke when Harumi let out a guffaw and started banging her desk in amusement. The duster that bonked her head, leaving a nice print in memento, was not as amusing though. Ayako-sensei turned towards me and gritted out, "Get in." As I ped him by on my way in, I could hear him distinctly mutter to himself that it would be good riddance to see me gone. I flashed a smile at Nuki and Soyoto, who gave me a thumbs up each, and waved at Harumi, who cheerfully waved back before taking the one empty spot. There was a paper resting on my table already, and the CL resumed its silence as the test progressed. It wasn't difficult, to be honest. Most of it required us to spew forth the propaganda that we have been subjected to for the last 1.5 years or so. I had a suspicion that the exam was made easy to spew out more genin to be the cannon fodder in the upcoming war. From the looks of it, none of the students had any trouble with the exam. Honestly, even regular CL exams were tough compared to this shit they had asked us to answer. An entire CL being fast-tracked to make up numbers, and it was no wonder that Konoha had huge casualties during the original timeline in the Third Shinobi War. I was secretly glad that none of my friends would be seeing the front lines. If this was the standard they were keeping to, then it only meant they were creating fodder. Despite not rushing, I finished the test in half an hour despite the allocated 2 hours duration. When I looked up, I found several of the Hyugas and Uchihas were already finished. I cast my eyes to look for Harumi, Nuki, and Soyoto, only to find that the trio was already napping. I snorted at the scene, causing Ayako-sensei to narrow his eyes at me. I rolled my eyes away from his look and started staring out the window. Within an hour, everyone had finally finished the test and we were asked to wait outside while Ayako-sensei graded our papers. Harumi approached me as soon as I got out of the CL room and started bugging me. "Hey, what's with the makeup? Who gave you those lovely red spots?" "None of your business," I growled at her. Like hell I am going to tell her that a bunch of fish thought of me as their snack. "You look like a deer, with only red spots," she laughed, causing everyone to turn their eyes towards us. I merely scowled at her. "Ah, is Hato-kun angry?" "Don't be Hato-kun. I am sure no one thinks bad of you for having red spots." She started giggling like a deranged psychopath, and I have to say it alarmed me. "Who are you? What have you done with Harumi-chan?" I asked her, causing her to stop giggling and stick her tongue out. "Ow, you are no fun," she pouted. "Please, my quota of fun for the month got over the day before yesterday," I drawled, causing her to punch me. "I mean, really, what happened?" she asked at last, calming down. "Training accident," I replied, not bothering to elaborate. "You train?" she exclaimed in mock horror. It is a wonder he even knows such a word, an arrogant voice interrupted us. Harumi and I turned around to look at the group of Uchihas smirking at us. I sighed in reply. This was going to be one of those days. Those holes have been trying to rile me up for the past 1.5 years. I am even amazed that they were still going on with it considering how I usually paid them little heed. What are you looking at, you Senju scum? Even your forefathers will be ashamed to know that their lineage has given birth to such a waste of space, Kyomo Uchiha smirked. I took my time to clean my ears before replying. Did you say something? I could see Harami's eyes twinkle in amusement. On the other hand, my usual response didn't seem to please the Uchihas. I could see nervousness bleeding out of their forms. It looked like they had decided to battle that nervousness the only way they knew it, picking a fight. And why bother with someone when a Senju is in the vicinity, right? Right. You think you are clever, Senju scum. I could beat you with my hands tied behind, Fujita Uchiha growled from behind the lead one. I waved them off and started walking away as usual. They were going to hurl some more insults on my Senju name and get frustrated and walk away like usual. It was no big deal. They could growl all they want, but as if the words of 7-year-olds could bother me. And as predicted, they started mouthing off my behind while Harami and I were already halfway down the corridor. Their grumblings grew low and low as the distance between us increased. A Hyuga from another CL was looking at me with disgust etched across his face. I could easily guess what was running through his mind. You see, Hyugas were very prideful about their family name. You want to get a rise out of a Hyuga? Simple. Insult their family. But, beware though, those bastards could be really touchy about it, and if you are not prepared for their wrath you might end up in the hospital with a couple of blocked tenketsu points in your body. I paid him no heed either. We reached our regular shade and found Nuki and Soyoto already relaxing under it. They eyed us for a moment before Nuki spoke. Why have you dragged a Hyuga with you? Huh? Me and Harami answered intelligently and turned to see the Hyuga who was giving me a third-degree treatment with his eyes in the corridor behind me. I hadn't noticed him following us. I usually turn off my chakra sense once I reach academy. After I became proficient in sensing, it kind of became a chore to keep it on during academy. And from the looks of it, so is Harami. Why aren't you upholding the honor of Senju name? He asked, genuinely curious. I merely shrugged, not willing to explain myself to this self-important prick. He didn't even have the courtesy of giving me his name. Why should I bother to answer his question? I know you are capable of taking them on, he said, causing me to raise my eyebrows. I had been very careful in keeping my taijutsu skills as low-key as possible in the academy. Even during the last few months, I had purposefully held back to make it look like I was only average in that department. What made you think so? No name Hyuga? I asked, causing Harami to snicker beside me. Nuki and Soyoto let out a grunt to indicate their amusement. The bastards were so lazy to even properly snicker. The Hyuga's face scrunched up with the name I had provided him. Forgive me, I am Tokuma Hyuga, he introduced himself. I have seen you practice your taijutsu on the water earlier. That must require incredible chakra control and a good amount of balance. Nuki Wolf whistled behind me and I gave him a stink eye. Harami started snickering even stronger by now. TCH, troublesome. He can already walk on water. I thought it was Chunin stuff, Soyoto helpfully supplied. I eyed Tokuma Hyuga for a minute. I didn't know when he had seen me practicing. Probably before my encounter with Fugaku, for I had both stopped practicing and started keeping an eye on others' presence after that. Even then, I would have noticed someone staring at me. He didn't have the capacity to hide from me if he was watching me for a long time. Considering how paranoid I am in regards to keeping my head low, I would have noted that for sure. Ma, I think you are confusing me with someone, I responded, waving him off. His eyes twitched. I am sure it was you, Senju Dono. There aren't any other Senju in Konoha. And from the looks of it, I couldn't bullshit my way out of this either. How did he see it then? How? Those damn all-seeing eyes. I think I am going to get a complex regarding this thing if this continues. Having Byakugan must sure come in handy, isn't it, Hyuga-san? I asked mockingly. Take that, sucker. We can see how you like me airing out your secrets. As expected, his face blanked. His eyes roamed over the Naris lazing around beside me. Oh, lovely. Looks like someone was keeping their achievement under the wraps. I wonder why though. Wasn't Hyuga's all arrogant self-important pricks? Why would someone like a Hyuga hide that achievement? It didn't make any sense. Unless he was afraid of something. What would a child like him be afraid of? Ah, the caged bird seal. Now it makes sense. I felt a little pity well up inside me for the boy. He had unlocked his heritage only to be afraid of being branded with the cursed seal. I could understand his hesitation to reveal it to his family. Hell, even I would be worried if unlocking my heritage meant carrying a bomb in my head with a remote trigger in some hole's hands. I could feel him panicking inside, wondering where he slipped for me to identify he had unlocked his Byakugan. I patted him on the shoulders before giving him a comforting smile. When he looked up at me in confusion, I stated to my friends, "This doesn't leave this place. Do not ever reveal to anyone about his Byakugan. It is his secret to tell. Do you understand?" Harami's snicker vanished and Nuki merely opened his eyes before snorting and going back to his rest. Soyoto nodded his head and I had to stare at Harami for a few moments before she reluctantly nodded. She never liked people picking on me for my family name, and anyone who did so was on her shit list. While I am grateful to her for that, Tokuma was just a young boy who I guessed to be confused regarding family, pride and other stuff. Awakening his Byakugan must have left him in a serious dilemma regarding the topic of family and duty. I could understand why he approached me. Tokuma looked surprised that we would keep his secret to ourselves. While I felt like snorting at his naivety to believe the word of 4 strangers, I couldn't fault him as he was only a 7-year-old kid. Look here, Tokuma, I don't need to defend my family honor. If the words of 7-year-old kids like you and me can damage the honor of Senju clan, they didn't have the honor that was worth in the first place. Getting into fights for that is simply foolish. I have no intention of being in detention just because some idiot got a rise out of me. I have far better things to do with my time. I answered his question sincerely. He seemed to consider my words seriously before nodding in acceptance. Your logic is sound. I shall try to follow your advice in the future. Good day to you all. He bowed once before walking back towards the rest of his clan mates who were talking in the distance. Harami waited till he was a good distance away from us before turning on me. What was that? She demanded. Clan stuff, I answered noncommittally. Nuki perked up at the mention of fresh information. Even Soyoto looked as if he wanted to hear more. Explain, Harami pressed. It is better if you don't know, I said in reply. You are asking us to keep a secret. We deserve to know what we are getting into, Nuki pointed out helpfully from the sidelines. I let out a huge sigh. How much should I tell them? While no one had told me regarding the workings of other clans yet, even Danzo didn't go into much detail about it, I had an abundance of knowledge regarding some plot-relevant issues. Caged bird seal was one such thing. I think he is from a branch family. Awakening their Kekkei Genkai comes with a certain price for branch clan members of the Hyuga clan. I won't say anything else. If you want more details, ask Shikaku-san, I replied, providing them with a partial explanation. None of them looked happy. Harami especially looked as if she was pouting. But, seeing that I wasn't going to elaborate, they decided to drop the matter. As I sat there along with my friends lazing around until Ayako-sensei called us in for the practical portions, I realized that the conversation has given me some valuable inputs. It seemed as if the caged bird seal was not put on the branch family members until one awakens their Byakugan. It made sense. The entire premise of the seal was to prevent the theft of their Byakugan, even when the intention has been twisted in the application. If someone didn't have Byakugan, they didn't need the seal in first place. Sure, Tokuma was going to get into trouble for hiding his awakening. And I was certain that they were going to find out his awakening sooner or later. But, I couldn't fault the kid for feeling trepidation in allowing someone to have his fate literally in their hands. Hell, I would hide it too if I was in his place. After lunch, Ayako-sensei called us for the first part of our practical examination. We all embled in the grounds for the taijutsu examination. The examination was simple enough: land a hit on Ayako-sensei within 5 minutes. If you did, you ped. If not, tough luck. While I wasn't worried for myself, I was worried about Harumi, Nuki, and Soyoto. The Nara trio were not well versed in taijutsu like me. Granted, Ayako-sensei will definitely be holding back. I couldn't help but feel worried for my friends. Ayako-sensei didn't call us in any order. He randomly called out a name and the student was asked to step into the circle with him. Initially, nothing seemed suspicious as Ayako-sensei began calling out students and tested them. Most of the civilian kids were called out first and promptly they were tested in taijutsu. After that, he began to call other students from the clan, reserving the Hyugas, me, and the Uchihas for the last. The Nara trio ped their test barely. Soyoto was better among them than the other two. He landed a hit in the first 2 minutes itself, surprising most of the CL, including me. Nuki and Harumi, though, both barely ped. While they didn't land any hits, they came close to doing so. Luckily enough, Ayako-sensei was being a little lenient when it came to giving out the ping grade. Seriously, none of the students failed in the taijutsu CL. If that isn't a sign for minting out cannon fodder, I didn't know what is. Once the others were done, Ayako-sensei called out a Hyuga and Uchiha alternatively. But, when he conveniently started ignoring me and Fujita and Kayoma, I felt a little trepidation enter my heart. Even Harumi noticed it. The Uchihas, though, were impatient and coincidentally oblivious to what he was doing. They only realized that only us three were left when everyone was done. Ayako-sensei eased off his taijutsu stance and looked at us with a playful smirk on his face. I groaned, realizing that the man must have heard our conversation outside the CL and was taking this as an opportunity to throw me to the wolves. And from the looks of it, I think the Uchihas were also realizing my predicament, as Ayako-sensei didn't take up his taijutsu stance. It is said that the graduation marks are the end of the leg of a journey into being a shinobi. Ayako-sensei spoke to the CL, call it a checkpoint. While some things end, some things begin anew. While your career as a shinobi may begin truly from this day, I would like you all to leave your petty grudges here and move as the shinobi of Konoha. Quote. I grimaced, deducing where this was going. There is no way in hell he has left us three, particularly because he wanted us to kiss and make up. No, he wanted us to settle it with fists like shinobis. TCH, troublesome. Today, I am going to present you three, Haterama, Kayoma and Fujita, with an opportunity to settle your grudges like a true shinobi in a spar like your forefathers did. If anything, the Uchihas were looking ecstatic. You three will indulge in a free-for-all spar and settle your grudges before stepping out of this academy. That was the final nail in the coffin. As I looked around, I could see the anticipation in the eyes of our CL mates to witness a spar between Senju and Uchiha. I caught Harumi's eye as she gave me a worried look and flashed a roaring smile to her. To be honest, it was no biggie. I could take on the two punks easily. Hell, if I undid the seals on my weights, I could run circles around the bastards. But, I have been avoiding getting into such a conflict for my entire academy duration. Why can't people just act mature? Why did sensei have to force me to compete against those dunderheads? Kayoma and Fujita eagerly cracked their knuckles and stepped forward. They both did a few stretches and morphed into the traditional Uchiha taijutsu stance. I eyed them both wearily and stepped into the circle. You can't run anymore, coward. I am gonna beat you into a pulp, Kayoma shouted, pointing his finger at me. I grimaced at the noise he was emitting. It was uncharacteristic for an Uchiha. I turned around to look at Ayako-sensei, who was smiling like a cat which had cornered a mouse. Ah, sensei, can I withdraw from this test and take the test like others? I asked in a last-ditch effort. Coward. Fight us, the Uchihas shouted. The other students in the CL jeered at my question and quite a few catcalls came my way. I endured it all smiling and waited for Ayako-sensei's response. He looked at me with what amounted to disappointment flickering across his face. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I desperately hoped he saw the wisdom in what I was suggesting. Looks like your CL mates want to see you three fight Haterama-kun. I can't disappoint them, can I? The perverse glee leaking out of his voice made me groan. Maybe, just maybe, I should have been on time today. I am afraid it won't be fair for other students, sensei. I tried a different route. I mean, Hyuga-san there. I pointed at one of the Hyugas who had a higher rank than me in Taijutsu CL, as far proficient than me in Taijutsu. Why don't you mix them up with him? The Hyuga didn't react. He was watching the proceedings with a stoic face. As did the rest of his clan members. The remaining Uchihas were throwing immature insults my way, like asking if I am a girl or what and like that. The rest of the CL was now waiting for sensei's reply. Ayako-sensei looked at me critically for a minute, wondering why I was hesitant before turning to the CL. Do you guys object to the test I gave to Haterama? If anyone does so, please raise their hands. He asked. Harami, bless her, was the only one who raised her hand. I let out a dejected sigh. Sorry Harami-chan, looks like you are outvoted. Ayako-sensei said gleefully. I rubbed my head in irritation. It looked as if there was no out for me. I sighed and readied myself mentally. I knew that I had to give up the charade one day or other. But I hadn't expected it to be this sooner. So, this is it, huh? Should I go all out and thrash them like there is no tomorrow, or moderate myself so that I could hold on to my secrets a little longer? Is it worth it to reveal my secrets this early in my career just to satisfy the ego of two kids and a vengeful sensei? I could take some beating and make it look close, that way it wouldn't be too glaring. But I can't lose. Not after all the shenanigans. Sensei, I can hang back and let Kayoma fight him if he is afraid, Fujita said boastfully. I merely raised my eyebrows at that. Sensei had said it was a free-for-all, and from the looks of it, the Uchihas were not even bothering to put up a pretense of a three-way fight. No, Fujita-kun. As I said, this is a free-for-all. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair for Haterama-kun. The sarcasm dripping of Ayako-sensei's voice was clearly evident. You hang back, Fujita. I will finish with him and we can spar to see who is standing. It won't even take me a minute to crush him like a bug. Look at him, coward. It is no wonder his cousin ran off wanting nothing to do with him. Quickly, finish him off and we can have a real spar, Fujita said, causing my body to go rigid. Oh no, he didn't. The bastard didn't accuse my cousin of abandoning me. No way, he said that in front of the entire CL. Haterama, are you okay? Ayako-sensei's voice came from far off. I was struggling very hard not to dash off and punch that bastard's living daylights out. As always, when someone badmouthed my cousin, my anger was coursing through my veins. They wanted a spar, right? I am gonna give them a macker. But was it worth it to beat a 7-year-old for something he said without even meaning to? Sensei, my voice sounded hollow even to me, are you sure you wanna do this? I asked, hoping the bastard will give me one last chance to walk away from it. It was not worth it. It was not worth it. Yes, Haterama-kun, Ayako-sensei said. There was a small tinge of doubt in his voice now. But the deed was done. When I looked up, my eyes were red. I could hear Harami gasp somewhere in the crowd. My mind wasn't on her though, it was on Fujita, the bastard who badmouthed my cousin. As if his cousin is not a kawa. Kyoma didn't even get the chance to finish his statement as I shot forward with chakra-enhanced strength and punched his daylights out into the crowd of students. He shot from my fist and landed in a heap, knocking the feet out of few of the other students. I watched Ayako-sensei's stunned face from the corner of my eyes before dusting my hands off as if knocking out a fellow student meant nothing to me. Lesson number 1. While talking in my vicinity, I drawled melodramatically, "Don't insult my cousin." I finished the statement and turned to face Fujita, who was gaping at me. As if my eyes brought him out of the daze he was in, his face turned red from anger and indignation and he spluttered, unable to reply. "You are dead, Tem," he growled, cracking his knuckles. "For a clan that needs special powers to even defeat weaklings, you lot take yourselves too seriously," I calmly replied. While most of the CL was trying to work out the insult I had uttered, the Uchihas in the CL stiffened. An inhuman growl erupted from Fujita's throat. It didn't look like he took it well. From the corner of my eyes, I saw Ayako-sensei wondering if he had made a blunder by allowing this mayhem to occur. "Don't you dare insult our clan's Kekkei Genkei, you Senju scum," Fujita roared and came at me with a flurry of kicks and punches. I dodged them effortlessly. While Fujita was good, he wasn't at my level. I have been practicing taijutsu like a maniac for the past 3 years with nothing to do. If this was an all-out spar, the kid may have a chance owing to my non-existent ninjutsu, but in a pure taijutsu contest I am afraid, the kid was at a severe disadvantage. I watched in boredom as he tried to keep track of my moves. I did some false twitches to see if he tracked them too, and to my wonder he did. His reflexes were good, especially his eyes, and if he ever activates his Sharingan, his tracking would only improve. If he focused on increasing his speed and reflexes, he would be a nightmare to fight in the future. No wonder, the Uchihas were prideful about their dojutsu. Despite the way it is awakened, I could respect the nigh invincible ability it would provide to the user once it was done. Too bad, I would have definitely liked to test my skills against someone who is adept in using those eyes at this moment. I flipped of Fujita's elbow to create some distance between us and dusted my dress off nonchalantly. The twitch in Fujita's eyes and his hard-pressed mouth indicated his frustration. He had thrown almost everything in his taijutsu arsenal at me, but I had neatly evaded them with little to no effort. The ever-present smirk he usually had when picking on me was nowhere to be found. I realized that I really liked this feeling of power I possessed. It was strangely exhilarating. To brush off your opponent's moves like as if they were mere ants was really invigorating. I smiled at him and folded one of my arms behind my back and beckoned him. "Come hither," I said, my voice laced with amusement. He growled and launched at me once more. Seriously, is this kid dumb? He should have understood by now that I was way faster than him. The ideal thing to do in this situation was to go on defense and wait for me to come to him so that he could try to land a hit on me. But all he was doing was repeating the same thing he did before. Eventually, I got bored of dodging his hits and delivered a light kick, causing him to stumble back. His eyes widened in shock that I had landed a hit on him. I smirked at him and relaxed my pose. "I distinctly remember you telling me that you can beat me with your hands tied behind. What happened?" "You know what? Don't answer that. It was a rhetorical question and I think it went way over your head. But guess what? You might have some luck in the next round," I said, folding both my hands behind me and beckoning him forward with my head. I heard amused tittering sound from the crowd and watched him grit his teeth before once again rushing towards me like a fool. This time it was difficult. I will give him that. He was trying way more hard than the previous 2 times. And me keeping my hand to my back meant that I can't block him with my arms. The only thing I could do was evade, and I set my mind onto it. It was tough going. I eventually managed to outlast him as he started breathing heavily and his movements became slow. We both paused for a few moments, him catching his breath, me stretching myself a little. You see, his 3 chances were done, When we get back, I am going to kick the bastard into next week for accusing my cousin of abandoning me. All right, I think. Ayako-sensei began trying to stop the spar. I shot out like a bullet from my place, not allowing him to finish. Fujita saw me coming, I meant his eyes tracked me rushing towards him, and tried to react. I easily slipped past his guard, delivered a kick to his midsection, causing him to slide a few feet. Lesson. Another kick to his, causing him to rock forward. Number. A punch to his gut saw him rising upwards. 2. A roundhouse kick to his face finished him off as he was knocked out. Just because your eyes can track my movements, it doesn't mean your body can react to my speed. In essence, your eyes are useless in taijutsu if I am faster than you by a long margin. I finished dusting off myself and beamed a brilliant smile at Ayako-sensei. Lee would one day impart the same lesson onto Sasuke. Sure, I stole from him, but that is the best thing about being reincarnated in the world you watched. You get to do all the cool stuff you saw other characters do. I would do the reconciliation seal, but my opponents are out cold, sensei, I told him, sheepishly scratching my head and giving off a goofy vibe. Stunned silence greeted my words as everyone watched me in shock, amazement, wonder, and various other expressions portrayed in their face. The Naris were the only ones who were relatively unfazed. Soyoto had one eye open and one eye closed, probably trying to doze off. Nuki's eyes were wide open and it looked like he was committing my second lesson to his memory. Harumi, though, was grinning so wide with her teeth blazing brilliantly. I half wondered whether her mouth won't hurt because of her wide grin. She waved at me and I nodded back. I turned my attention towards Ayako-sensei, who was looking at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Seriously, was the man so inept to understand that I had been holding back during all the taijutsu clees? He looked as if he didn't believe his eyes. Danzo-sama was right, he muttered, causing my heart to freeze. The wide smile I had froze in place. So, it was his machinization. I should have noted Ayako-sensei's unusual interest in me today. I had been distracted by other things that I had failed to notice it. In the end, I had fallen for it hook, line and sinker. Not that the Uchihas made it any difficult. Kami, if the Uchihas were this easy to manipulate, then it was no wonder Danzo ran circles around them in the original timeline. A shuffle from the other side of the circle caused both me and Ayako-sensei to turn our eyes towards the source. Hiromi Hyuga stepped into the circle and bowed towards Ayako-sensei. Now what? I would like to challenge Haterama Senju-san for my spot at the top of Academy Taijutsu ranking, sensei, Hiromi Hyuga said pleasantly but with purpose. Like hell you will, you vain-eyed freak. You see, unlike Fujita, Hiromi had already activated his dojutsu. I distinctly heard Harumi laughing amidst the multiple whispers that were permeating the CL. I wanted to throttle her. I hoped that Ayako-sensei refused. But, looking at the man, I realized that it was a vain hope. Alright, as expected. Why can't I catch a break? I turned towards Hiromi and sighed. I flashed him a fake smile and looked at Ayako-sensei before stating out loud. I concede. The whispers doubled and I distinctly heard Harumi saying to someone near her, I told you he would refuse. Oh, how I wanted to throttle that little witch. I saw Ayako-sensei's eyes twitch and his lips thinned once more. He muttered something under his breath before looking at me and narrowing his eyes. You will accept the challenge and fight for the spot. Or else, I will fail you in the taijutsu portion of the examination. As the proctor of this examination, my words are final, he stated firmly. I sighed in dejection. This is why I didn't want to showcase my talents to the CL. Now, the Hyuga is feeling insecure and he wants to prove his worth. Why can't people just walk off? What's with all this fixation on waving their S? I could refuse and fail the taijutsu portion of the exam. But it would be hard to explain to Bawako. While Hiruzen would understand, Bawako would be absolutely livid. And having a livid Bawako roaming the same halls I am living in was a scary proposition. I turned towards Hiromi and bowed to him before taking my taijutsu stance. I was careful now. I have seen Hiromi fight. He was a league above others in the CL. His gentle fist technique was a nightmare. I would normally fake a performance and walk back, but I can't do that now. I eyed him warily and watched him shift into his stance. Hiromi was the type of fighter one really didn't want to be pitted against. Patient, unmovable, strong defense and deadly offense. A scary combination if one existed. He wouldn't rush at me like Fujita. He would wait for me to attack him. Byakugan. Veins popped out of Hiromi's eyes and I could feel him take my entire being into account. I felt strangely vulnerable knowing that he can look at my tenketsu points. What is it with my opponents today? One with freaky eyes that would only improve as his Sharingan awoke and another with Byakugan. Damn eyeballs. Looks like that complex is definitely gonna build up. As I watched Hiromi, I saw a frown appear on his face. He backed out of his stance and looked at me once more before speaking. You have chakra weights. It was not a question, a statement. Yes, I didn't bother denying it. It was not as if it is going to stay a secret for a long time. Can you undo them? He asked. No can do, princess, I said a little jovially. Then I retract my challenge. I will not fight you with a handicap, he said and bowed to sensei before walking back to his spot. Huh, that certainly simplifies things. Who knew chakra weights could come in handy like this, huh? The ninjutsu portion of the exam was a breeze. It wouldn't have been that memorable if not for the fact that we were left to wait for a long time as Ayako-sensei called us one by one according to the roll call. And in typical Japanese fashion, the last name came first and that led to a few awkward moments. The names Senju and Uchiha were left to last as people from other clans and even civilian kids were called in before us. That left me in a room full of angry Uchihas who were shooting dark glares at me. Honestly, from the way those heads acted, an onlooker would think I was the troublesome one. Kami. I even tried to walk out on the spar. Not that it helped either. At last, Ayako-sensei called my name and I promptly left the room, leaving behind the Uchihas to smart over in my absence. When I entered the room, Ayako-sensei motioned me to the middle and asked me to perform the 3 basic elementary jutsus. I substituted with a pot of plant in the room and almost lost my balance on the thin spot it was residing in previously. The clone I produced was both perfect and bland. There wasn't any personality to it. It was just a chakra construct and it wouldn't even fool an academy student. I mentally noted to research a better clone technique as I felt that this would only get me killed. When the time came to perform a henge, I transformed into Ayako-sensei. For a second I thought of transforming into Danzo just to see how Ayako-sensei reacted, but scrapped that idea as a cynical part of me said that it would only hurt Danzo's connection with me more and thus leading Danzo to believe that I liked him or something. When all 3 jutsus were finished, Ayako-sensei didn't hand me my Hittite immediately. He eyed me critically, with a look of reluctance on his face. But, soon his face turned into one of resolve as he spoke to me. Haterama-kun, do you know any other ninjutsu? I can give you extra credits for it and it will sure come in handy, he asked me gently. Over my dead body, you bastard. I may have fallen for your shenanigans during the taijutsu exam, but I am definitely not falling for any more of it. I was sure that whatever I did, will be reported to Danzo. I didn't want that man to have an accurate gauge on my skills. I have already slipped up in the taijutsu department. Forgive me, sensei. I only know the 3 basic ninjutsu, I said without batting an eye. I see. Regardless, your grasp on the 3 academy ninjutsu is good. I think I can make an exception and pu. Though you have to remember that you have only barely ped, thanks to your taijutsu. It is good enough for you to pee, he said holding out a Hittite. A load of bull. But, I didn't make much deal about it. I reached out and grabbed the Hittite, bowing to him. Good luck, Haterama-kun. Don't be late for your Team IGN meant next week, he called out as I exited the room.